It is clearly established that without his early convictions about the online startup at the time, the $170 million acquisition of Talabat.com may never have happened. He bought the online delivery website when only 23% of the Kuwaiti population was using the internet, and then sold it for 4 times his money. In a recent interview after Talabat's acquisition by Rocket Internet, Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Lughani stated that he is probably happier than the actual owner right now. As the vice chairman and executive director at the $7 billion Kuwait National Fund for SMEs, Al-Lughani is now part of a new fund meant for investing in small and medium-sized ventures in Kuwait. Please welcome Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Lughani, Vice Chairman and Executive Director of Kuwait National Fund for SME Development, who will be interviewed by Omar Christidis, founder and CEO of ArabNet.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. Creative Combat has everyone jazzed up now, so we're excited to be closing the conference with a bang. When the Central Bank of Lebanon, 18 months ago or so, announced Circular 331, it made quite a splash, and the impact and ripples have already been felt by the startup ecosystem in Lebanon, which it has led to the creation of a number of new funds, accelerators, and different programs. Now, when we think about that, we're a country of 4 million people, boosting our startup economy through $400 million investment. We thought it would be really important as well to look at what other countries are doing. Kuwait, a nation of also 4 million people, dedicating $7 billion to supporting the ecosystem there. And try to see if there are some lessons that we can learn from each other, experiences that we can share, especially since we will be having some of the key leaders and minds behind the circular joining us after this discussion on stage to discuss the progress of Circular 331 and impact so far. So without further ado, speaking of, Abdulaziz, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So governments across the region are investing in promoting the startup ecosystem. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed called this year the Year of Innovation. Here in Lebanon, we're putting in, and Kuwait, you're putting in all these investments. Is the role of government to be doing this? Should they be involved? What should the role of government be in promoting the entrepreneurship ecosystem in their countries?
First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Umar, and the organizers for receiving us at this conference. And the importance of the role of state, I think, is evident by the great turnout we have today at the conference. And I'm sure that without Circular 331, a lot of these efforts, which are driven by private sector, wouldn't have even happened. So thank you, Masraf Lebanon, for all the efforts that you've done. And I think this role of a catalyst is certainly the next important role that governments will play over the next 5 to 10 years until enough depth is created within private market. And for us to reach there, Umar, allow me if you take just a couple of minutes.
Please go right ahead.
I think we should have a much forward-looking vision when we look at building an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and that looks at building a fully integrated ecosystem rather than just being reactive to public demands and what market needs are. Leverage local academics and research is going to be a very important role a very important tool and resource that we should be looking at. Adopting, obviously, international standards is something that helps us not reinvent the wheel. There are lots of other programs around the world that are very similar and could be fine-tuned to meet the different market needs. Always make sure that you allow for market and practitioners to feed their inputs. So the concept of our accounting friends draft exposure is certainly something very important before circulars or resolutions or policies are made or published. The inputs of practitioners is something that will have a significant impact. Don't complicate the design of initiatives. Sometimes over-engineering them really kills them. So make sure that a lot of these initiatives actually tackle problems that are not very small and also not very big. To make sure that the impact is actually felt in the countries we live in. Always recognize the lead time required for these initiatives to actually kick in and start seeing the fruits. We all come from a school of thought, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. To make sure you have macro KPIs that these indicators would be used as references for measuring the success and failures.
I think we're gonna jump into a bunch of these topics as well.
Good.
But whenever we think governments, and maybe this is not everyone, but sometimes we think governments can be slow, can be bureaucratic, there can be a lot of red tape, whereas the startup ecosystem is the opposite. It's dynamic. People are pivoting all the time, changing very quickly. How can we make sure that while we acknowledge the incredible importance of the efforts of the government, how can we make sure that those issues don't impede the progress of whatever programs that we're building?
We have a local saying in Kuwait, and I'm sure our Lebanese friends do as well, عطل الخباز خبزة. Private sector's role in implementing a lot of these strategies is going to be very important and cannot be undermined. So a lot of the actions, a lot of the strategies, the design of different programs that we will speak about later will actually be delivered by private sector to take away any of that bureaucracy or negative connotation that's present in government institutions.
So funded by government, but delivered through the private sector.
Absolutely.
Great. So let's dive in a little bit in more detail and let's talk about the key components. What are the key components of your program?
When we first, when the law 98, 2013 was first passed and the board of directors were appointed, we made sure that we look at 4 key building blocks in addressing any of the objectives highlighted in the law itself. The first one is smart capital, and what we mean by that is allow and provide technical and strategic guidance for entrepreneurs throughout a company's life cycle. Contribution to top line, very important topic. How could we design preferred procurement policies to benefit all the entrepreneurs we're supporting from the state of Kuwait?
So you're working with them on access to capital and access to markets, access to customers.
Absolutely, and being the state of Kuwait being the largest procurer in Kuwait will obviously have significant impact on that. Accessing talent is very important. As companies scale up, we need 10 of Umars, 10 of Abdulaziz to actually make sure that we have the necessary skills as companies scale up. Access to multiple rounds of financing. It's not just the seed round that you'd really require. It's betting on companies that actually make it even more and making sure that they have a regional/global mindset when they're tackling markets rather than just looking or focusing at small ones. It's accessing land, especially in Kuwait. Land is a very scarce commodity or issue that we have. It's the bureaucracy around the red tape and licensing or permits that we take care of on behalf of the entrepreneur.
You're going to take care of licensing their companies?
Absolutely. And within the law, that's stipulated very clearly, we have a maximum 30-day window to process all applications. Otherwise, the entrepreneur actually has the rights to sue us. So within the law itself, we have a maximum window of 30 days to process any applications or licensing or permits. The second building block we focused on is education. And that's a very dear subject to us because even as the best accountant, for example, graduates from college or university, they still don't know how to run a business. For engaging early on with students, college and university students, and embracing an entrepreneurial mindset through extracurricular or curricular activities is very important.
So if we concretize this a bit, what does that mean? Are you going to go in and develop programs with the universities for their students?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we've broken down a company's life cycle into 4 stages. And the first stage is actually going to be based out of colleges and universities. But before we get there, the third building block is legal. To do all of the highlighted notes, a proper legal framework, a venture-friendly legal framework is necessary for all of this to happen. And the fourth, which to us is really the most challenging, is mindset. We have a mindset challenge with the policymaker, with the entrepreneur, with the investor. with most of the stakeholders that we look at. Why? Because the local mindset we have is that traditional merchant mindset where they would buy low and sell high. And an entrepreneur today, which you've seen through the great pitches we heard earlier yesterday, really tackles a pain in the communities we live in, makes that pain goes away, makes people's life more efficient. And that's something we really need to spend a lot of time and effort in educating and building awareness in the community we live in.
Excellent. So now we've talked broadly about the main pillars. If we dive into them more specifically, how are you going to implement this? What kind of strategy or plan are you working on? Is it broken down? Is there steps that you already have in place?
Absolutely. So what we've done over the past 7 months right now is really evaluate and screen what resources do we have in Kuwait. So what plethora of college grads in terms of degrees are we graduating in Kuwait? What kind of skills do we have in the professional labor market available in Kuwait? What subsidies are available in Kuwait and where are they being directed? All of that to make sure we target industries that we can compete on regional basis and rather than just on local basis. So the first thing we've done is put together a national strategy with clear sectors that we've identified, which are technology, light industries, as in manufacturing for light industries, and the third one is media and design. Once we've identified these target sectors, we've put macro indicators, which are on the number of companies that will be supported and funded by the National Fund, on the number of jobs that will be created by these companies, both for locals, as in Kuwaiti nationals versus expats, the number of the revenues, net value add on the economy level, and how much will that translate at, even if it's at a minimal basis relative to the whole GDP. But these bases were very important for us to measure how fast or slow do we progress.
Great. I just want to take a second to reiterate these. The KPIs that you are measuring for the progress and success of your program: number of companies funded and supported, net value added for the economy, number of jobs created.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be publishing these numbers?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, this takes us maybe to the support functions that we'll be providing, and that's primarily through an information center that we will be publishing a lot of data, research, and reports on entrepreneurship for the state of Kuwait.
Excellent. So, great. We have a sense of some of these KPIs, the general direction, how you brought in the different stakeholders under the fund and the strategy that you're doing. Let's talk about the actual initiatives.
Super.
What are the kinds of initiatives that are going to be part of the program?
Super. So we've designed a 9-program metric. So based on the verticals we had, which are the 3 target sectors, as well as a 4th vertical, which is open to all other sectors, we've also broken down a company's life cycle into the horizontals. So we have 4 training programs, which is the first stage of a company's life cycle, and we focus for a month and a half on fresh entrepreneurs over there, those who haven't really started a business before, whether it's a college grad or someone who's 60 years old, and we make sure we tune them into our entrepreneurial mindset, learn basic entrepreneurial skills, and translate their ideas into solid business plans or business model canvases or feasibility studies that we can actually invest in, provided that they have the right team. So that's the first stage with 4 different programs across the verticals we have. The second stage is the seed stage, where we've also put together 4 different programs for the different sectors. These programs will vary in terms of size of investment as well as duration of the program, depending on the sector you're in. But they range between 3 to 18 months, and the size of investment also varies, but we're capped by a $1.7 million investment across all the programs we have.
$1.7 million is the maximum that you're going to invest in any single entity.
Absolutely, and that's on aggregate exposure, not necessarily just one investment. The third stage we have is an accelerator stage, and that's been designed to naturally work with technology only, where we have also designed an accelerator program there. And then lastly, across all the sectors we've focused on, we will also have 2 programs. One is a plain vanilla debt facility that we, in collaboration with local banks, we've already designed and started. And the other is also a VC program in collaboration with local financial/consultants that we're working with.
So, how are you guys going to get these? Are you going to fund these programs yourself?
All right. So the one thing, coming back to an original note about the bureaucracy of government, that the board, the National Fund has decided to move forward with, is that all of these services will be delivered by private sector. So these programs and initiatives that we've spoken about earlier will all be delivered by private sector, making sure that they have assigned KPIs and that these are to be revised regularly through reporting frameworks that we have built. Now, we're going to be investing at max 80% of any company's exposure the National Fund decides to move forward with, and our partners, depending on the vertical and the stage you're in, will also be co-investing with us by another 20%.
Great. So it sounds like there are already a tremendous number of similarities between the circular and what you're doing. I think that we'll see a lot of those similarities maybe in the panel after this. And maybe that brings us to another question that I asked Marianne last year in the event, which was my concern around $400 million for a small country like ours. My concern at the time was it might lead to inflation in valuations of deals. There might be too much money chasing too few companies. Now, if we think about that for you in Kuwait, it's a significantly larger number, right? $7 billion. And you're saying the maximum you're going to invest in any single company is 1.7 million. So quick math, let's say 2 million, that's $7 billion. That's 3,500 companies that we need to invest in. How do you see this working out? Are you not concerned about the availability or the ability of the market to handle so much money?
I think deal flow is certainly something that we're very much worried about, and we've also very much tackled through the different programs we have. So we've designed the different 4 stages in a funneling process, where we've built capacity for the first stage, the training stage, to handle approximately 2,000 entrepreneurs a year. In terms of graduating different batches, as we call them, programs. And then it's a funneling process that goes all the way up to the growth stage we're looking at. With that said, I think there are plenty of opportunities available in Kuwait for early stage funding to look at. I think we're good for the next 3 years with the existing deal flow we have. With that said, all in all, yes, it's a $7 billion independent public institution, but we're not really drawing down all that money. Instead, we're really calling on the capital that's required to meet and deliver the highlighted programs we've spoken about earlier.
So, but in terms of the funds, then, how many funds do you think you're gonna put money in? How many do you think the market can take, and on what size?
We're looking at least when we say funds, we refer to
VC
the late
funds.
stage,
Yeah.
growth capital stage. In Kuwait, we're probably going to be launching less than a handful of less than $50 million funds over the next 6 months. And it's
6 months?
Yes, absolutely. And we will, these funds will not be sector agnostic. They will be sector agnostic. We're not looking at target sectors. Instead, we're looking at more generic, late-stage growth capital funds that will be designed. It's your typical GPLP model with a few fine-tuning depending on the laws required that we have designed.
So, and then beyond the money, what other support are you going to give these guys?
We've designed all of our programs to really add technical and strategic guidance for the entrepreneurs we invest in. The last thing an entrepreneur wants is hearing someone that lectures about something he or she has never done before. For the teams we invest in, regardless whether it's the growth capital stage or even the seed level stages, the teams we invest in, the service providers, the caliber that's required is really an important success factor for all of these programs to kick in and validate the success. Teams is going to be very important executing them.
Excellent. So teams, we said technical assistance. Earlier you mentioned information and data center. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Absolutely.
Beyond the value-add services on the smart capital side we've spoken about earlier, we're also going to focus we have a one-stop shop. We've also explained a bit earlier that takes care of all the licensing permits. We have an information center that we are also building that aggregates a lot of data from all the activities that will be happening in Kuwait and producing them in the form of reports that are information-based for entrepreneurs to benefit from. We have a technical assistance team which has a grant scheme being designed, and it's for entrepreneurs who are quite well established but require some capacity building in support functions, be it of IT or HR or legal, or those who require special attention for attending exhibitions. It's a grant scheme that we've designed. And lastly, it's the land access function that we've also put together that serves both short-term and long-term solutions for manufacturing needs.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like you have a very comprehensive, well thought out, and very detailed program. I have one more question. How do you believe that you could collaborate with our efforts here in Lebanon? How can we build closer connections between these national initiatives that are happening independently here, in Egypt, in Kuwait, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia? A lot of things are happening independently, but there surely must be ways that there can be cross-country collaborations.
I mean, for starters, I think I'm already benefiting from Circular 331 being on the investment committee of Leap Ventures, which is a recently established VC practice here in Lebanon. But the more important part is really streamlining government initiatives and policy frameworks throughout the region, be it of cross-border trading that's necessary for a lot of the e-commerce that we're seeing nowadays. It's through the policy reforms on preferred procurement throughout the MENA region. It's employees and really talent exchange, linkages between different countries for talent that needs to be scaled up. A lot of these efforts are actually happening, but on very individual basis. And I think with governments paying more attention to streamlining all these efforts, this is certainly a low-hanging fruit that we could see happening over the next 5 years, inshallah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. We wish you the best of luck with the implementation of the program.
Thank you very much.
As an entrepreneur who's running this program, we can tell you that we will be watching you closely in the numbers and the achievements that you guys do. And we hope that we'll be able to have you again in the future to talk about the progress of the program and the impact so far.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much.